policies, social issues, and of course political trends here in Nigeria and away from here, but mostly in Nigeria. Of course, it gets to connect to people and the government. So on today's program, we'll take a look at the event that took place yesterday here in Akwa Ibom State. The governor of Akwa Ibom State, Governor Dom Emmanuel, had yesterday handed over presented the final transition committee, of course, report of his administration as the governor of Akwa Ibom State, and of course he take a look at all the sectors that he had touched. And that Pastor Omoino, that's when he takes over from the former governor of Akwa Ibom State, Dom Emmanuel. So it was necessary for that event to take place. But then we'll take a look at some of the things that happened during that event. And of course, we'll get to discuss some of them. So if you're here in Akwa Ibom State, feel free to join us. Let's talk about this issue. I won't be talking about this alone. I have a political analyst in the house in the person of Vincent Alu, who will be talking to us about this issue. And also, away from that, we'll take a look at what is currently trending in Nigeria today, which is the commissioning of the Dangote refinery. And of course, we'll take a look at facts about that particular refinery. But before then, let's talk about the Transition Committee report presented by the Governor of Akwa Ibom State, Udom Emmanuel. Just stay tuned. We'll come right back after a short break, and then we talk properly. All right, welcome back. I told you it's going to be a very short break, and we are right back on the show, The Law of the People and Governance. Yes, we are going to take a look at the Transition Committee report, like I said earlier, and we have in the house live with us Vincent Alu, a political analyst. Welcome, Vincent.
Thank you for having me, and good evening, Nigeria. It's nice to be here again.
Okay, so we'll just take a look at the happening in the event. We'll take a look at what I'll go into details a bit. Okay, let's take a look at what took place in the event. I believe the event was actually necessary, of course, for such a time like this, when Governor Dom Emmanuel is already on his way out and has formally handed over the transition report of his administration to Governor-elect Pastor Omoino. And we're wondering how crucial is this to the transition process?
Well, you know, for every outgoing administration, it simply means that there is an incoming. And for there to be an incoming administration, it also means that there must be something for the new government to work with. And that brings us to the issue of transition report. Now, what is a transition report? A transition report is simply a summary of what is transpired in the outgoing government, and then what the new administration will meet on ground, and probably some projections as to contractual agreements 1, 2, 3, 4, and then quite a lot of other things, you know, that the new administration need to know. Because government does not exist in a vacuum. Government exists in, you know, a space occupied by systems, occupied by humans. So for you to be able to properly transit from one location to the other, from one government to the other, there is need for a transition document. And that's exactly what the governor of Akwa Ibom State, Mr. Udom Emmanuel, has done. And incidentally, the transition report makes it seamless for the new administration to, you know, move on and then start what is supposed to start. Because if it doesn't do, if there's no transition, if there's no document as to, okay, this is what we have done, this is where we are, and this is what we are heading to, it means the new government is coming to like start afresh. And sometimes it can be very confusing. So the idea of the transition report by Udom Emmanuel, of course, a committee was set up to look into it. That's what you know, Udom Emmanuel has done. And for me, it's commendable that he's done that, so it will be easier for the governor-elect Umoino to commence his own set of governance, as it were.
Well, quite a breakdown. This administration, of course, you've been here in Akwa Ibom, so you're conversant that this administration came on board with the industrialization mantra, and there is a debate as to whether it was a success or not. And I would say, is there any positive things we should expect, owing to the fact that this administration is running on the continuity, campaign of continuity, continuing what the past administration did?
Well, if you ask me, I will say yes or not to do. I studied public policy, and we were taught that if government decides not to do a thing, it is also a policy. Okay. If government goes ahead to do a thing, it is also a policy. And in the policy cycle, we were also taught about intended and unintended consequences. Meaning, there are times you come up with a policy and it will not go down the way you had actually planned. So, for the industrialization policy of Odo Emmanuel, did it succeed? I would say yes. It succeed. Every policy is a work in progress. It may not achieve 100% as it were, but there were milestones that were achieved. That is as a result of the industrialization policy of Udo Emmanuel.
So you would say yes, it was a success.
Yeah, it may not be 100%, but yes, it was a success. That's what it is. Because right from 2016, we started seeing Akwa Ibom on the map of foreign direct investment. You count Lagos. The next state you will always count is Akwa Ibom State. That shows that the policy of Udo Emmanuel in the aspect of industrialization and ease of doing business worked. Otherwise, investors would not leave wherever they are to come invest in Akwa Ibom State. So yes, in the industrialization policy of the Udo Emmanuel worked. We are hoping that, of course, the next government that will take over from May 29 will raise the bar of industrialization and probably do more than Udo Emmanuel has done. But for industrialization, I can tell you for free, yes, that Udo Emmanuel did well in terms of that policy.
Okay, deal with it from the word go. Immediately he steps into office, he needs to look at this particular area.
Well, if you ask me, I would say in terms of digital economy.
Okay.
In terms of knowledge economy, in terms of human capital development, the government of Udo Emmanuel didn't really do much in that aspect. But in all the aspects that it set out as its 5-point agenda or 7-point agenda, both in 2015 to 2019 and 2019, nations are moving away from oil. They are no longer dependent on oil that much anymore. The emphasis is now on knowledge economy, meaning you have to invest in your humans. You have to invest in your manpower. Countries like India, countries like Japan, and some other countries, they don't have natural resources like us. They only invest in their human resources. If they tell you billions of dollars that India makes alone on human capital development, you will marvel. So one will expect that in the area, like this area I've mentioned, that the Udo Emmanuel didn't do well, Umoino, of course, one of the things I am actually pushing for him to do with his Arise agenda, that is digital economy. Digitize the economy. And I thank God that yesterday, the governor launched the digitization process of the public service. That's just an aspect of the digital, economy that I have been pushing for, the governor-elect to take as one of his programs. It is embedded in the Arise agenda, but we hope that in the days ahead, there will be some form of explanations and some form of putting structures in place on how to go about, the digitization process.
During his administration, he's going to do this, he's going to do that, and then he was sworn in a second time or brought back to office a second time, and then he wants to push forward to do this, but just maybe things kept on coming, sometimes urgent needs arises, things you never foresaw, like the pandemic that came in and just swept everywhere and then took lots of things away from I think made them deviate a little bit from the path they were towing. Now, what is that thing that you saw as a barrier to this administration conquering that particular, goal, that you feel if this administration does not work this way, it's still going to fall back that way, they're still going to miss this?
Place on how to do it. I told you earlier on that public policy is what government chooses to do. or not to do. Meaning that a time may come when government has intended that, look, we want to embark on so and so project. And then for reasons that are even beyond the control of the leaders, such policies are not implemented anymore. I can say for free, no leader, no governor, no president will ever get it 100% in terms of, I have outlined 10 things I want to achieve as in my, then I achieve it 100%. There are human factors. There are natural occurrences. Take, for instance, in 2015, we had the economic meltdown that took us up to 2016, and we had 2 recessions. We were not even talking about the recessions alone. We had the COVID, and that shut down the entire ecosystem. That alone was, a turn off for those things put together.
I'm sorry, it's not part of this, but to shock us, I think the World Health Organization has come out to say that, hey, you guys need to prepare for a brand new pandemic, prepare this time so it doesn't sweep you off.
And COVID took us by storm.
Unawares, yes.
Were we prepared? No. It was only during the COVID period that we now saw government investing heavily in the medical sector, because the entire space, was shut down, so nobody could go out for medical treatment. So they had to make do what was available within, their ecosystem. So, like I was trying to say, no leader achieves 100%. You must achieve some, and you are likely going to fail in some areas. So, though Emmanuel has done his bit, and like I always say, government and development of a people is a bit by bit thing. You come and lay a foundation. For example, Obong Victor Atta in 1999-2007 laid a foundation for the development of the state. Chief Godfrey Akpabio came and contributed on that same foundation. Udom Emmanuel Atta came, set a foundation. Obong Godfrey Akpabio came, there was infrastructural renaissance and what we call uncommon transformation. Udom Emmanuel came, we have seen what is done in terms of infrastructure. First class. All the governors put together have not done what is done in terms of infrastructure. I give it to him 100% in terms of rural roads, in terms of bridges, name them, in terms of public interventions in public
even boosting agricultural sector.
I can tell you, in terms of sports, I give it to him. And then in terms of foreign direct investment, for the first time, we are seeing Akwa Ibom coming second consistently after Lagos in terms of foreign direct investment. That was huge. And now we have an Umoino from the private sector. We call him the street person because he grew from the ranks to become who he is entrepreneurially. So we are expecting to see more of a private sector driven economy. Of course, we're expecting to see more of commerce. We're expecting to see government supporting the growth of small businesses. People have now, begin to look inward and then begin to create things. You hear of the Mike Pakuko, you hear of Marcus Stad, you hear a lot of people are now being creatively engaged,
trying to do something,
trying to make a living. So we expect, because the 21st century economy is not an economy that is dependent on oil. It's not an economy that is dependent on civil service. It's an economy that is driven by this kind of businesses. So we expect to see an Umoino using the Arise agenda to push forward development in terms of entrepreneurship, in terms of discovering entrepreneurs, in terms of training entrepreneurs, in terms of mentoring entrepreneurs, in terms of supporting them, giving them equipment, giving them funds.
Okay.
That's what, of course, the president of Rwanda has done. Paul Kagame. He's made a lot of inroads in terms of supporting entrepreneurship, and he has gone ahead to speak to African leaders to see to the fact that they begin to encourage entrepreneurship so that there will be less dependence on government and in terms of white-collar jobs.
I must agree with you. Yes, I know that sometimes the government deviates and then we have to call them back on check. Of course, the media is served to act as the watchdog, and there are times they do well and you say yes, they do well. So in terms, like you said, we're beginning to see people come up with different crafts, come up with creating things. I think this administration has really seen lots of CEOs.
True. I must commend Mrs. Methlin Anwana,
oh yes,
who is the SSA to the governor on SME.
Yeah.
I must commend Mr. Ime Uwa, who handles the Directorate of Marketing, that's the Dakada
Speak and they're not ready to speak.
Well, they prefer to allow their work to speak for them. It's people like us that will not come and tell the public
Analyze.
what they have done. Take, for
Okay.
instance, a few days ago, some Akwabomites were empowered through a program called DECO. I've forgotten the full meaning of DECO,
Okay.
but that is the product of the Directorate of Marketing, and consistently they have been supported.
That on radio stations
That
are
was
also
that was
empowered
handled
people.
by the People's Democratic Party before now. That's totally a different package from the PDP. I think they used to give out 250, 150.
Yeah, depending on what you want to do.
And then 500,000. And then, of course, you have the, is it the Orange 3,000? The Orange 3,000 is supposed to be a
But
platform.
is it still functioning? I know that it came out a long time ago.
No, it is, because those beneficiaries were to be trained and empowered in badges.
Okay.
So I think I don't know if all of them have been so empowered, but these are some of the programs that the governor put in place to encourage entrepreneurship. We are hoping that with the Arise agenda of Umoino, there are some aspects of that Arise agenda that will take this issue of entrepreneurship to the next level, where we will now be seeing SME hubs in different aspects of the states, like we have in Aba now. If you go to Aba, things that are produced in Akwa Ibom are showcased. So if you go there, you will see different things that are produced by Akwa Ibom. See, I tell you, if government will commit just 50% of its time and energy in promoting entrepreneurship, look, we won't have the youths in our streets anymore. We won't have youths lining up in the houses of politicians looking for handouts, because when you are creatively engaged, you don't have any reason to go lie in the house of a politician, because in the morning you go to your development will be unleashed in that regard, and then many Akwabomites who are creative, who have one idea or the other, will be supported, so that jobs will be created, poverty will be reduced, living standards would have been improved, and that will mean economic boom, because they will pay tax.
Of course.
They will go to the market and buy. When they make money, they go and buy. Look, we need to begin to create job and wealth creators. We need to begin to mentor people who will create jobs and create wealth. Wealth is not created by government.
Yeah, talking about creating jobs, I know that there was some time that to create jobs. The government, yes, is not supposed to create jobs, but an enabling environment. So let's talk it from that angle. Do you think Akwa Ibom, in this current administration, right, Akwa Ibom has created that enabling environment for, entrepreneurs to, start growing, foreign investors come in and start.
Very serious, political follower of, this government, and then later, an opposition, political party candidate. But today, what does Immaculate James do? She cooks food. And now people are patronizing her on a daily basis. She even cooks and sends outside Akwa Ibom. Sometimes she sends it to Lagos. Government needs to support. Once government supports by creating the enabling environment, you don't need to create jobs anymore, because the people you have an amazing pot. Each time I go there, I see like 3, 4, 5 people
being employed.
Yeah, being employed there. So that means some people
dressing up to for, I would say, the new guard that is coming in.
The golden boy. Yeah, I call him the golden boy.
Yeah, his wife calls him the golden boy.
Oh yeah,
as well.
sure. The wife turned that stereotype into what has now become the golden boy of the golden era.
Sometimes it's funny because some people, would I say, take it on themselves, like, oh, you can call me the golden boy. So I'm seeing people come.
Despite all the odds, do you know how many cases that were in court?
That's going to form one of my last questions. Do you think the fallout of the elections, okay, now, that there will be a widespread acceptance of Umoino?
Of course. If there was no widespread acceptance, he wouldn't have won the election. Umoino won the election landslide. He won in the field. You know that when everybody seems to be against you, it means there's something so spectacular about you.
And they will come to discover later.
Umoino is a thoroughbred technocrat in terms of administration. We're together in the same department, and we're offering the same course, public administration. Umoino has been an entrepreneur right from 1995, that he came back to Akwa Ibom and grew his business to what it is today. Look, such a person cannot afford to fail, because there are lots of expectation on him. He knows that the stakes are high. He knows that the stakes are high. Therefore, he's going to bring his entrepreneurial antecedents. He's going to bring this together and then govern the state in such a way that by the time we are back in 2031, because of course he's going to rule for 8 years. By the grace of God, he's going to be there for 8 years. By the time he's done in 2027, he will go back in 20 and end in 2021. So, by emergence will beat their chest and say, "Oh, of a truth, we made a mistake kicking against
kicking against people. Whoever is going to lead emergence is a normal thing. I think it's that's what makes it political. Okay, so it's a game. It's why am I
off the hook and begin to
wanted by all means.
Wanted by all means. They begin to throw hogwash, tantrums. They even go personal and say a lot of things. That's what Pastor Moino went through. I don't think any governorship candidate in Nigeria has gone through what the man has gone through.
5:32, and then we have to get and to talk about the commissioning, which was done yesterday. I think that's a big feat that Nigeria has attained. So let's just go on a short break. When we come right back. All right, welcome back to the show. It's called The Law of the People and Governance here on Spectrum Television, and we have been discussing political issues, political trends, social issues, and today we took a look at the Transition Committee report yesterday here in Akwa Petroleum Refinery, a prestigious undertaking that is anticipated to spark the change of Nigeria's energy industry. It has been officially opened by President Muhammadu Buhari, and presidents of African nations, business titans and bigwigs flocked to see the $19 billion complex that Buhari opened on Monday in Lagos, the continent's commercial hub. This man in Africa unveiled plans for the refinery in September 2013 after securing financing for the project worth roughly $3.3 billion. You know how much that is. So Dangote, in his address, stated that the first product of the Dangote Petroleum Refinery and petrochemicals will be in the markets before the end of July, beginning of August this year. He made this call while giving the welcome address at the inauguration of that day's ceremony. Their first goal is to ramp up production of the various products to ensure that within this year they are able to fully satisfy the nation's demand for higher quality products. And according to him, the accomplishment is to enable Nigerians to eliminate what he described as the tragedy of import dependency and stop once and for all toxic substandard petroleum products from being dumped in Nigeria's market. This refinery is located at Ibeju-Lekki, Lagos, covering a land area of approximately 2,635 hectares. And the refinery is powered by a 435 megawatts power plant. That's a polypropylene plant. At full capacity, it can meet 100% of the Nigerian requirement of all refined products and also have surplus for export. It is designed for 100% Nigerian crude with the flexibility to process other crudes, and it is a self-sufficient marine facility with the ability for freight optimization, and it has the largest single order of 5 single-point moorings anywhere in the world. Diesel and gasoline from the refinery will conform resources emission effluent norms and incorporate state-of-the-art technology designed to process a large variety of crudes, including many of the African crudes, some of the Middle Eastern crudes, and the U.S. light tight oil. So let me not go into much details of talking about what the refinery can do and what it cannot do. Well, I would say this is a big feat, like I already said. It's like oh, a big investment, a huge one for Nigerians. What's your thought?
Of this country, we've seen an individual do what government has not been able to do in the last 50 years by coming up with this project, the Dangote refinery, with all the features that, has been reeled out. 650,000 capacity, barrel per day or more. That's really huge. Nigeria consumes 450,000 per day, and we have a refinery that is providing 650, which means we have 200,000, as excess for export. You didn't mention the fact that it will provide over 100,000 jobs.
If I wanted to go into details,
so these are the trappings, and the same refinery has plans for 12,000 megawatt of electricity facility tied to the same project. You know what that means. Even Nigeria as a whole put together does not even have up to 3,000.
This project looks like, that's why I said it's a big feat for Nigeria. I'm supposed to say, wow, this man owns this. Wow.
Sure. I am happy that it has happened by an individual, not by government, because in the last 8 years we had the president who was the minister of petroleum for 8 years.
Yeah,
made promises.
Doubled as a president.
Yeah, made promises that the refineries, we have 4 of them, were going to work. Those refineries never worked.
It gets me thinking. One of the wider arguments about the petroleum sector in the country is actually that the inability of the successive government to get any of these refineries to work.
We produce crude. We have the crude free of charge. We only apply technology to it to get it out from where it is. Now, we have 4 refineries that have been refining these products before now. But because there are certain cabals that fit fat from the system, these refineries have refused to work. Not just within the Buhari administration, but even in successive governments. The refineries have refused to work. Then came in the issue of subsidy payment. So why would the refinery work when we can take this crude to a neighboring country, Sudan, Niger Republic, refine it, then by the time the product comes back to Nigeria, you are now buying
cheaper.
Yeah, that difference will now cause subsidy. So those who are members of this cabal, they will make sure that the refineries don't work, so that this crude will always be taken out, refined in their own refineries outside the country, brought back to Nigeria, and then they go with their papers to collect subsidy. Mind you, between 2016 till about today, the Buhari administration has removed subsidy for like 6 times. The same president, prior to his becoming the president, said subsidy was a fraud, subsidy was corruption, but the same president has paid trillions of naira as subsidy as I speak.
And still attempted to try it again.
No. As I speak with you, the 2023 budget has captured close to 3 trillion naira to be paid out as subsidy. Now, we keep hearing subsidy has been removed. They remove it, increase fuel price, and subsidy is still there. They are collecting the money. Or 50% of what this government borrowed was used to pay subsidy. And that is why the Dangote refinery has become very important to us. We are hoping that with the coming on board of the Dangote refinery, there will be stoppage to payment of subsidy. But the question I ask now is, what will government actually do with those excesses?
Okay, now, you see, it still boils down to the question I want to ask. I know that Charles have, argued that, is it okay? Questions like, is this not going to bring about maybe monopolizing of that particular sector, or do you envisage anything like that?
Of course, I have said it. That was yesterday. I said it in one other media platform. I said, look, it's more like moving from frying pan to fire, because we were complaining of government monopoly. Now, government succeeded in killing all the refineries and depended solely on imported products to supply Nigerians with fuel and other byproducts. And now government has completely removed that subsidy from itself and has given it to another individual. Now, this is my thought. Dangote will make all the money. and probably compete to become the richest man in the world. What will be the impact of this refinery on Nigeria and Nigerians? How many jobs, like he has said, will be created? He has said over 100,000 jobs. What will be the spillover effect of the Dangote refinery on the economy of Nigeria in terms of the subsidy that we have been paying? Because trillions of naira have been drawn on a monthly basis to pay subsidy. Even monies that were borrowed that would have been used for other development purposes are used to pay for subsidy that is not even a sector. As we speak, more than 60% of our income goes on subsidy payment.
You know, the president had come in with promises, like you said, of, making this refineries work, removal of subsidy, and a whole lot of that. And none of these are happening, like you already said. So instead, we're seeing commissioning of private refineries, and then should Nigerians begin to be excited over this merit, or should they begin to just worry, raise thoughts about it?
For me, government has 4 refineries. There is need for competition so that the price of the PMS and other products will come down. So what it simply means is that if government cannot fix the refinery, then government should sell them. Government should privatize them. One of the presidential candidates, Atiku Abubakar, said he was going to sell the refineries. He was, lampooned upon, he was denigrated. But we are back to what he said. Because if refineries of that nature, are you aware that even with the trillions of naira spent on fixing these refineries have not worked? So and then we have Nigerians drawing salaries on a monthly basis from these refineries that have not produced one crude.
That's the question. So what do you suppose that of everything that the government has put in place, the money they borrowed, the money they, everything they planned and, projected, why is it so hard for them to fix a refinery? Not even one, but one single individual has been able, a Nigerian, to do that.
Well, it means that the cabal that feeds fat from the subsidy
do not want it to grow, so it won't favor
Of course, so that they won't take away that food from their table. Because I tell you, if there was nothing like subsidy, our refineries would have long worked. Are there anything wrong with the refineries? Maybe they are obsolete in terms of the technology. Can those technologies be reinvented? The answer is yes. So why has government not done it? It is because there are people who feed fat from the subsidy regime. That's why government will always go to borrow money from China and elsewhere, and then the money disappears within 1 year. Then the next year we see government borrowing billions of dollars from and then it goes again on subsidy. So if government cannot fix these refineries, the idea is simple: sell it.
Okay, but there's a report that government have 20% in the refinery. What does that, bring to the table? What does that mean?
If government, if government has 20% stake in the refineries, it simply means that Dangote doesn't have crude now. It's NNPC that has crude. And NNPC, even though a limited liability company, buys crude from the federal government. So of course, if government has 20% stake in the refinery, on that, yes, government should have a stake in that business. But the truth is that they have not told us the whole story as to who owns the refinery.
Okay, so now you're smelling a foul play.
Is it Dangote? Because even the CBN governor said Dangote borrowed for $9 billion from Nigerian banks, a consortium of Nigerian banks. I think they went ahead to mention a couple of the banks.
Okay, just to put the refinery, right?
Yeah, to put the refineries. And then he said even before the refinery took off, Dangote has paid back 70% of
what he owed.
So now I do not know, because the way the CBN governor has been involved in the project, it's possible
that he could be part of the person.
No, not him as a person, but CBN as an institution. They have contributed humongously.
But let's say they had
development of that project. Okay. So they are here to tell us the real ownership structure of the Dangote refinery.
Okay, Vincent, let's say they had, right?
Okay.
What does this mean? Okay, so let's say that not just one person. I think the federal government, or maybe different sectors in the government or parastatals, are maybe partly involved in the ownership of this. What does that mean?
No. What it simply means is that, of course, government will be involved in the running of the NNPC of the refinery. Not as if government would take over. No. It means for every profit Dangote makes from that refinery.
But how do they hope to regulate everything?
No. It won't be possible 100% to regulate the refinery makes. You have a share. So invariably, government is investing. The government has invested in that refinery simply because crude belongs to government. Crude don't belong to individuals.
Okay, so I know that I wanted to ask, do you think or do you smell any political undertone in this whole thing?
Well, even if there is a political undertone, what I may say here won't change a thing. The decision has been taken. So if government is the owner, or if individuals, let me not mention government here, if individuals in government are the ones is it going to create wealth?
But you know,
is it going to solve the issue of fuel subsidy? Is it going to make products to be available? Kerosene is 1,000 naira. Is it going to reduce the cost of kerosene? Diesel is 1,000 naira. Is it going to reduce the cost of diesel? If that refinery is going to support the establishment of a 12,000 megawatt electricity, facility, when Nigeria is struggling with less than 3,000, is it going to improve power supply in Nigeria so that businesses will thrive? Once all these things are benefits that will be derived from the Dangote refinery, I don't care who owns it, as long as it leads to the greatest good for the greatest number of persons. I do not care, because democracy is not democracy if it does not lead to people who are hungry to eat, people who are sick to get well regime. Then I don't care who owns it.
At this point, it's just like the words of the people out there who are saying, well, if this is actually government owned, then wouldn't it be something bequeathed us by the administration of President Muhammad Buhari for the past 8 years? So it would be, oh, he finally did something, being that he's been there as the minister and doubled as the president as well.
Well, the truth of the matter is that the Dangote refinery doesn't belong to the federal government, even though the federal government has 20% stake. So the Buhari administration cannot take credit for the struggles of Dangote. No, he should go and look for his own, achievement. But unfortunate revenue ratio of 96 to 100.
Now that makes me worried sometimes, and I'm like, how is this incoming administration going to thrive? What are they going to like when we talked about the Udom and the Omoino administration? What is it going to? At what point would it start? Would it start by paying debts? If it's paying debts, where is it going to borrow to pay debt? How does he hope to generate revenue to pay these debts?
Well, the truth is that government, the new government will come and create. You see, one of the sources of revenue for government is debts. There's nothing actually wrong in borrowing, provided you borrow for productive purposes.
If it's productive purposes, you're supposed to have to generate this money at least.
That's why I said
half of it.
That's why I said productive purposes. You borrow and build things that will pay back. That was
so. What can you say in this case?
You mean in the Buhari case?
Yes.
Well, the truth of the matter is that the Buhari administration borrowed for consumption. The Buhari administration borrowed to...
Talking about hospital, I think we've talked about it, the fact that the president had inaugurated sometime last week, or this week, yes, had commissioned, health facility in one of the wings of the presidential villa in Abuja there. And then I remember the First Lady, Aisha Buhari, coming out to say that, oh, this is going to put an end to the incoming administration traveling abroad for treatment and their immediate family and some VIPs. And then I kept on wondering, what could be, why is it doing this at this time? I mean,
8 years after. And just a week before that commissioning took place, the husband was in UK for a toothache problem.
So it's quite worrisome.
It's not crazy.
Now, what is, okay, what if this administration comes in, because there's no law that binds them from traveling out for medical attention. So what if this administration comes in and I'm like, oh, I don't think that my needs can be catered for here, so I have to travel out, and then you can't stop him because the past administration has done so.
That's the more reason why the National Assembly should sit up. The National Assembly in the Constitution. The problem we have is that we have a set of leaders in the National Assembly who only consider themselves first. For example, how can the National Assembly pass a law or attempt to pass a law that doctors cannot travel abroad for greener pastures until you have spent 5 years? But they themselves go visit abroad for treatment. Who does that?
Okay, let's not talk about that because I know I keep on mentioning that, and then if we want to talk about it, it will take, I think, an hour or even more to talk about it. So I've just checked my time. I know that I have 1 minute before the end.
Thank you.
Okay, so back to the people. Thank you so much for being part of today's program, The Law of People and Governance, here on Spectrum Television. Don't forget to follow us on social media and subscribe to our YouTube channel. Of course, you can watch our shows if you follow us at SpectrumTv.ng. My name is Rachel David White. Good evening.